Have your W interrupted. A feels bad man moment for Lehens, but he's the only person to go down from Griffin. They were able to actually cement the bot side and get those kills and objective that sweeten the story a bit, but only to the tune of 500 gold. And Afreeca will say, it's not everything we wanted, but it's pretty close for the first 20 minutes of this first game of the semi-final.
But with Griffin being able to pick up every single dragon here so far is actually important if they're going to move into the late game in a standing that they like. We know that we like the team composition coming in from Afreeca, but if Griffin can keep picking up Drakes, keep picking up insurance policies to try and help out this late game, certainly will be a big deal. And remember, they're no slouches when it comes to late game either. Afreeca Freecs certainly feeling like they have late game comfort in almost every lane.
Afreeca has some itemization that's a bit fun to note. We see the very old standard builds, 2 year ago GP standard build that we see very situationally now. Triforce, Yoma's Ghostblade, so lethality on the GP, so a full lethality Jace from Smeb as well. Do remember, it's a mid lane AD champion that goes Black Cleaver, so it's actually GP doing much more damage early than you might imagine if Aatrox starts stacking up very quickly on that armor shred into the Black lethality coming through from the GP.
Also means GP's side lane is going to be extremely dangerous because Cannon Barrage will do so much extra damage if he goes even double lethality, if he picks up the Duskblade of Drakthar, which we have seen from GPs who want to play side lanes and just offer their ultimate to help out any team fights.
Without help, he will lose the 1v1 matchup against Black Cleaver, Frozen Mallet, Gnar, but it's unlikely to be 1v1 for too long because Shen is in this game and Viper, bit of a miss-snipe on the ultimate there, does slow down things for Griffin again.
Yeah, speaking of phase rush, Kramer's going to utilize it as well to get out of the way of every skill shot coming in from Viper. But unfortunate, misses the piercing arrow to follow up as well. Should be fine though, just putting the pressure on.
The 2 items, Afreeca will be doing more damage than you might expect for the comp, but maybe a little bit more susceptible in the side lanes, sort of thing that can be subverted on both sides. The build parts here are all very interesting, including Viper, who does not go for the very standard choice here. We almost always see Duskblade of Drakthar second, just to have a bit more vision clearing and a bit more burst. He's gone Edge of Night. If he Twitch Edge of Night's a Sejuani ultimate, that'd be really sick.
It would be super sick, but it takes a little bit of arming there on that one, so it can be tough.
Bit more health in the build also.
Indeed. Got Twin Shadows coming out from Kramer as well. He's like to go for this one on his Swain. See how it's going to work out. Shelly trying to knock down the mid lane outer turret. Not going to be able to get it with the first charge, but certainly does put it very, very low.
And this game state makes it a lot trickier for Griffin to fight for this third Drake. The fact that it was second Infernal, whether it was always the plan or whether it was an adjustment based on the Drake spawns, they're in a really good spot to fight Afreeca Freecs rather than another version of this comp where a couple of item adjustments, say a Jorm's Fist into a Sterix Gauge is being completed for the GP, and then you might say, oh, maybe the next Drake after the third spawn, maybe 30 minutes rather than 22. With the vision control and pressure Afreeca have around the mid lane, feels like the first real flare point should be this next Drake.
Well, another ultimate's going to land. This one's going to be good on Spirit. Takes so much damage, but flashes to get himself out of the way. Tarzan on the flank now as Kuro has to try and dash his way out, but Umbral Dash isn't a huge one, and he has to flash to complete the distance. Afreeca now going to be able to push forward and take down this outer turret in the mid lane. Griffin don't want that to happen at all. A lot of their ultimates now on cooldown as Kuro's looking to try and turn this one onto sword. Not a lot of Narbar for Griffin. They do save the outer turret in the mid lane, but that's going to take a breath to fall down. 147 health, thanks Observer. It's Tucson. Spirit's Refuge is going to keep him alive as he dashes his way out.
Spirit has nothing, remember. Only ultimate is down as well. He doesn't have flash. He has no Warmogs to get his health bar back. So Spirit unable to respond to this. Just those poke outs will mean you probably lose the mid lane turret, but this should be the Infernal to Griffin.
Vision of Empire coming in here. That's how they're going to be able to get any vision available. And Viper sitting back. He's got half a mana bar, which means that these piercing arrows can really stop Afreeca from liking any of these team fights.
Speaking of liking, Sword's top lane and exhausted, so they don't want a 5v5 now, Griffin. Means they won't be going towards the Infernal just yet. No, trying to take that top lane turret.
Well, Tarzan's going to move towards this Infernal Drake. Doesn't have the highest health bar of all the Drakes, as Kuro is going to find him. The rest of Griffin are collapsing, though. World Ender here for Kuro, so he can buy himself a lot of time for the rest of the Afreeca Freecs to turn up. But it looks like Spirit looked for a steal, but they had enough burst damage just gets taken down. Griffin nicely played to get themselves their second Infernal and third Drake of the game.
GP started walking up. Sword was able to draw away the gangplank, even though the ult was available, not thrown out. Griffin have done very well to get the double Infernal this game. They're going to feel good about that. Do they ever get greedy trying to cover lanes? Tarzan doesn't spot Spirit, but he does suspect he's there.
Yeah, Kuro is going to move down here as well. Sword turns up. Going to miss a cannon creep. Going to frustrate a lot of people. Tower may actually just fall to the cast creeps.
There's a difference
doing
between
a bit of damage.
There being a jungler there to kill you and just the straight up missing of the turret. So we'll give him that one when it comes to that cannon being missed. He will eventually lose his mid lane turret. Still, double Infernal is good because it does stick the landing on the mid game comp a little bit harder with the extra 16% AD and AP. The unfortunate part is no turret lead for the side of Griffin means that their mid to late game plan of put down control wards and acquire pick becomes trickier. So it's definitely one of those 50-50s when it comes to how this game is played out. I think both teams to different degrees can look at this game and say, well, this is about what we expect.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it's what happens now that's going to be the big deal. There's Afreeca just looking to take down that outer turret on the bottom side of the map and then look towards inner turrets. Their game plan certainly worked out in the early game to give themselves as much map position as possible. You can see Kuro setting up shop on the top side, but doesn't have a teleport, so the 1-3-1 not exactly going to work out as well as you could potentially imagine here for the Afreeca Freecs, especially given the fact that Kramer has opted in for the cleanse instead of the teleport, given the fact that Griffin do have that Chains of Corruption that can be so pesky, getting that lockdown and getting those picks.
And the worry for Griffin is, outside of our pre-match talk about scaling, look at the item choices. It's a Black Cleaver on Olaf as well. It's a super offensive build. They need to make advantage now.
Well, Griffin looking for them here as Spirit's going to get flashed on. Stand United's going to come down, but who cares? That's going to be the reckless swing to take him out. Now Afreeca Freecs all clumped up. A lot of damage is going to be able to pick up Chovy, which is a huge deal. The ultimate there for Kramer kept him alive as well. Keen to teleport it in, but it's a 1-for-1 in the end. And this is exactly what we wanted. This is so incredibly close between these two. But Keen, he's got a Guardian Angel, third item already complete for the GP, who is absolutely gigantic.
And with Summoners, they can kill the enemy jungle, but you saw how little damage the Viper Varus could actually put out in this fight. There's no lethal tempo like we saw rocked on our other Varuses in recent memory. Watch the replay here. They desperately want to kill Spirit. I mentioned it's Black Cleaver, double Black Cleaver on the side of Griffin. They're going for power now compared to Warmogs and scaling for later. They get the first kill, but then Viper is zoned away from damage. Meganar is actually available for sword level 16, but he's not in the fight. So because he can't impact the fight instantly, like Keen is able to, it may be a single kill, but no more to the side of Griffin.
Yeah, and it's even answered back there with that kill onto Chovy. Chovy just popped to all the damage that Kuro had available to him. Speaking of which, he's up towards the top side, shoving another minion wave towards this inner turret. It's going to be answered very quickly here by Chovy. Pretty satisfying watching Arise farm. So he did manage to do a lot of damage in that last fight, but also died extraordinarily fast, and the fact that Sword didn't do anything is probably why Afreeca were able to answer back, given the fact that the teleport was nice. From Keen.
Keen has been able to go for a teamfight build into Gnar, and that part is important to remember, as this GP is more teamfight ready than most Gangplanks at 27 minutes. Meanwhile, laning build from Sword, very, very common here. It's an old school build. Olaf has gone for a snowball build, and he has 3 kills, so at least the kills have come in. We'll see if he does find that role for the late game. It looks like it's going to be, once again, falling back onto the Gargo Stoneplate, the big favorite for Keen. Firstly, for Tarzan as an item, his Trundle build is Kindle Gem into Stoneplate, and that's now built by most Trundles around the world. Rise himself has gone for mid-game power, and we already know it's a mid-game build from Viper. Again, they've got control wards down. How can Griffin leverage their sheer amount of pick and even their poke in the mid lane? That's what they need to do, is Afreeca continue to scale in the side lanes.
And can they avoid Keen is the question, because I certainly wouldn't want to go anywhere near him. He's just augmented that teamfight build with a Last Whisper that he's picked up already. Tarzan does have the ultimate available, not going to put it in just yet, and even after the stun does come down, he's still able to throw it out, utilize it to get away. Lehens has to flash as the Afreeca Freecs, all 5 members grouped up, managed to at least scare away a lot of members of Griffin.
A lot of threat when they have so many tanky members running at you, 5 tanks in some ways. The GP may be indexing higher on damage, but it is a lot of bruisers on the side of Afreeca. Their only range champion is Swain. So as you know, the siege is not something they do at all, but a team fight around Baron is what they want. And if they can get that by putting down their own control wards and forcing Griffin to face check, that's exactly how Afreeca want to win the game, as they're piggybacking onto Sword.
Yep, the Gnar ult is going to come out here, but Sword should just die. Spirit's got enough CC, and Keen's got a hell of a lot of damage. See you later, Mega Gnar. Doesn't even manage to pick up the turret, which is sitting on about 2 health.
And this is what Afreeca can do. The enemy team don't have as much Baron threat as you'd expect because they don't have a Blade the Ruin King AD carry or a traditional AD carry. Lethality Varus is not going to rush down the Baron while you send 2 members bot lane. It's a smart time to rotate with their smite. Griffin once again, second to the rotation. Afreeca Freecs pushing through mid.
Yeah, looks like they should be able to grab this turret as well now that Keen's turned up. That Trinity Force going to help him there as Griffin, they do get there, but not in time. Inner turret falls in the mid lane exactly where they wanted it. That's going to make the map so long for Griffin.
Feels like the way Griffin win this game is to make it about the siege and then realm warp into the Baron pit, and by sheer force of 5 members, kill it fast enough. Mountain Drakes, Infernals, big helps in that particular way. Otherwise, if they're not playing around vision, I think Griffin lose basically in every scenario compared to the team fight comp that Afreeca has, and the Baron will baby Afreeca through their poor siege by giving them turret dive options. So Griffin need to be so careful and so precise about the next 2 to 3 setups. They're a team that usually is in that Afreeca role. They pick a team fighting comp, they put down less control wards than most any team in the LCK, and they put power in the 5v5. They can't do that today. They didn't draft that way today, at least in game number 1. So I'm very interested to see how Griffin try to close this game.
Or if they even can. Maybe it's the question of how Afreeca are going to close this game, because they're the ones in the driver's seat at the moment. Not exactly when it comes to the gold. Not even a 2,000 gold lead at this point in time. We use that tempo word a lot. Afreeca are the team that have it at the moment. 4 turrets to 2. It's what really stands out. Being able to pick up their first Drake as well. It's a Cloud, which is a little bit unfortunate. Only 4 Drakes to happen this game that aren't Elders towards the end.
Keen has gone already into Lord Dominic's regards. He is a monster at this power level. We're talking true damage barrels. That'll be fun as Kuro.
Yeah, has to flash, and that's another ultimate missed here from Viper. Skill shot accuracy, normally something that's very impressive from him as a player, but hasn't been able to find the chains of corruption. Certainly when Varus was released, was the most difficult skill shot to land in the entire game ever.
The Caulfield's Warhammer. Wait to see what Keen's last item is.
Oh wow, okay, so we've got Viper picking up a Stormrazor.
Has gone Stormrazor for a bit more burst. It means that his first auto will have some validity, but it definitely isn't where you usually would go. So he's dropped the Duskblade of Drakthar, or maybe even a Lord Dominic's Regards. There isn't that much armor on the enemy team. There is the Guardian Angels, but the armor is still being processed. A bit more burst, but is it too late for Stormrazor? Is it too late for Griffin to actually cement what was a pretty good early game? It wasn't a blow-away early game, but a pretty good early game. Afreeca Freecs, they've been able to control Griffin when they are strongest, and now Afreeca Freecs themselves are 2,000 gold ahead.
And also just so comfortable, right? Yep. And when it's a team that hasn't been in this situation before, this kind of high pressure, you really want to make them make the proactive moves. If you're just talking about psychology of big games like this is where we were thinking that Griffin had to prove themselves. And this is a team that hasn't been on this caliber of a stage so far in their careers.
And it's been that ability to diagnose and download the enemy teams for Afreeca Freecs 2 games in a row, running the Elite Four of teams that were at 13-5, joined at the top. We had 4 teams at 13-5, and Afreeca, the final team in playoffs, at 10-8. They looked at Gen G, and look, everybody knows Gen G's playbook. Afreeca did. They countered it very, very aptly. Sort of thing that can always happen to Gen G because their inflexibility. And from there, they followed that up with looking at Kingzone, knowing that Kingzone, like most teams in Korea, were all about the 1-3-1, and then answering the 1-3-1 2 games in a row to give themselves what proved to be an unassailable lead in that best-of-5. Now they look at Griffin, and they couldn't have known for sure what Griffin would do because Griffin have varied so much, and like you mentioned, have that little experience when it comes to cutthroat best-of-5s. They did qualify for LCK Summer 2018 in a best-of-5 3-1 win over MVP, but other than that, going to be precious few best-of-5s for Griffin. and they look at the enemy team and say, all right, well, they decide to go for this mid-game comp. We're happy with that. I think you're very happy to see Griffin not play something that they're super accustomed to in this must-win best-of-5.
The thing about Griffin that I get worried for Afreeca fans is the fact that sometimes they pick comps like this and then they just teamfight better than you. So they could still potentially make that happen as we move to the later stages of the game, especially given the fact that Viper will have some auto-attack threat on this Varus now that he does have that Storm Razor. A bit of attack speed is now in there.
And that's why analysis of where games are going, 5v5s, team fights, is very tricky because someone could just mess up and make it a 5v4, and then all the things you're saying about how comps should work go out the window. And also the early game can just change scaling and matchups very, very easily. We can only infer. This game's been so much posturing, there's been so much farming and so little action. There's nothing super surprising at this game other than Afreeca having more turrets than Griffin. That at the end of the day, it seems very likely that this one will go as it says on the tin. If you read the label, it says that Afreeca should win the 5v5. That will probably happen, but you're right. There is that kind of magic in the air about Griffin 5v5 team fights post 35 minutes. I just don't know if magic's going to hit today.
Well, it is post 35 minutes, Papa, so see whether it does happen, because now is the time. 2,000 is absolutely nothing when it comes to a gold lead. Just think that if Griffin can stop Afreeca from taking Barons, will put them in pretty good stead, because Afreeca's ability to siege into turrets is basically non-existent. With this composition that's so incredibly low range, we'll have to get a dive happening as Sword just really wants to take down that 2-health turret bottom lane.
But at 35 minutes, who has the Baron vision control? The area we said that Griffin desperately wanted to play around. That is to full control of Afreeca.
Yes.
Will be answered a couple of times to see if the minions will finally do this turret in. Oh, there it is. First turret registered in a long time for Griffin, and second turret in the bot side. As a reminder, mid lane turret still up for Afreeca Freecs. First turret hasn't been knocked down yet. Not getting the mid lane turret, not getting the run of the game, means that we will actually have Elder spawning before the mid lane outer turret has gone down for Afreeca Freecs.
It just feels like this game has taken a really long time to get to this point. Often we see this, and it's 24 minutes into the game where you've got teams posturing in this exact position. Now we've got an extra 12 minutes that's gone by. We finally got here as BF Sword to be picked up from Tarzan. Is he gone? That's a Guardian Angel third item.
He was sitting on Chain Vest and the Non-Magic Mantle a long time, so I assumed it would just be Stoneplay, but he interrupts his build to go BF Sword into GA, you would imagine, like you say, Atlas. So that is doubling down on the Black Cleaver start. It's a very offensive choice, but if they ignore Tarzan, at least he does big deeds.
Well, good lord. This Elder Drake is going down extraordinarily fast. Remember, Cannon Barrage is going to be invested very early on in this piece. As Spirit, he's going to make it a 50-50. It's taken by Griffin as Tarzan locks it down. Ragnarok's in. He's doing loads of damage, and Spirit will have to get himself the hell out of there. Stand United has to be invested on the Sejuani, and Griffin, under the noses of Afreeca, just take an Elder.
Things like a BF Sword Olaf will increase that speed, the attack speed buff on this patch as well. And now you go over to Baron and say, fight us with the Elder.
Yep, Realm Warp is going to bring them in there as well. 4 members underneath the purple worm. Afreeca Freecs are going to get around and Sword is there for the flank.
They don't know they full recalled Sejuani and Shen in the base.
And remember, no Stand United available for Tucson either. Griffin, very respectful though. Do move away from the Baron. They started up once again, but it's given time for Spirit to make his way back in. Another 50-50. A potential option here is Kuro just getting slaughtered by just the Mini-Gnar. Mega-Gnar now available, but Lehens, he's out of position, and Griffin, they do not want to go for this. Baron's going to get back up to full health. We've still got an Elder Drake for Griffin to play with. Afreeca Freecs, very difficult to fight this squad now with all that extra on-hit damage and the quadruple Infernal Drake buff.
If you had deep vision, if you knew Sejuani had recalled, maybe you just DPS it down and take it. In that particular case, they could not know. That's why Griffin just back away.
And you can't really fault them for that either, because they had no map control at that point in the game.
Agreed. We see it and we think it's a fatal flaw, but actually you forget the mid lane outer turret was still up. They're back on the objective. Speaking of objective.
Got a minute left on the Infernal, as those Infernal chains are pretty good onto Lehens, but he stays alive for a very long time. Sword looking to get in there, just whips the ultimate though. That is not what they wanted. Not exactly the amount of stuns that they needed from that taunt either, as Tucson should be able to get taken down here. Viper picks it up. That's a Storm Razor proc if ever I've seen one. as now Tarzan moving on over. Undertow is going to go wide, but Griffin, they're too low to start up the Baron once again, and Afreeca have at least timed out the Elder Drake.
Looked like the execution was going to get them there. Toosin with the Taunt Flash was supposed to take down 4 members of Griffin, but he misses, I believe, everyone, as you're still Craigasming over the minions. Minion wave spots, by the way. That's what I'm Craigasming about. It's the fact that they had super minions. The minion waves pushing in on both sides. With those minion waves, they start up the Baron. They'll have to back away. Toosin could have won the game, you feel, there with the right Taunt Flash. He does not get it.
He's had pretty good playoffs so far, so you'll give him one mistake, but too many more of them, and we'll be talking about post-Rift Rivals Toosin that felt like a bit of a hangover. So once again, going to come in and check. No control vision, actually, on the Baron at the moment. Afreeca had used all of theirs after all that posturing after the Elder. But Griffin really wrestling back control of this game with just beautiful play when it comes to understanding the one location that they had control, and they utilized it. It's called finding the right lever and putting it in the right part of the can to get it open.
And I think sometimes Griffin just have different mindsets about situations. Like if I'm looking down at my Olaf build with Black Cleaver and a bit of magic resist.
And an X-Drinker.
Before I had the other 2 items, I'm like, oh, I don't really have anything. What am I going to do? Then he builds a BF sword and goes and bursts down on Elder Drake with his attack speed and just the surprise that the enemy team is making that move. And that's one way to be glass half full.
Well, Lehens is going to get brought into the pit. The ultimate's going to get quite a few knockups as the rest of Griffin are at least available, but they managed to take down the Braum very effectively. Teleport's going to be invested. Griffin know that they can't let this Baron go down. Ultimate's going to fly forward, but Ragnarok is there as well as the GA from Tarzan, so he's going to be absolutely fine. It looks like they've staved off yet another Baron despite losing their support.
5v4, you still can't start the Baron because Viper does so much harass. Sword was walking up, but we'll just back away. Will not be a Baron taken here. Still a game of inches at 41 minutes. Afreeca have done the hard work, and yet the inventiveness of Griffin might still trip them up one more time. Remember that if we just go back to farming for a bit, there could be a second Elder before the first Baron is taken. And that warps the game in a way we haven't really seen. It's a game state that's been not discussed at any point in summer season.
And Viper's finished his build as well, Papa. He's got the rapid fire cannon now just to make sure he fully charges his Storm Razor and has that extra range so that he can poke with almost everything.
And you know what this build does? It does a Q auto, and that does a huge amount of damage. Everything after the Q auto really doesn't interact that well with the build, but for true burst, this is, I'm going to get 1 long range auto, 1 long range Q, and that should do 50% of most people's health bar.
Well, if this game goes any longer as well, I mean, if we're looking at like 50 minutes, something like that, he sells a Ghostblade or an Edge of Night and picks up an Infinity Edge, he's a legitimate 80 carry at that point. He's got the crit that he needs, he's got the Infinity Edge true damage to really offer that consistency. A lot of flexibility when it comes to this because the runes don't mean as much when you've got 6 items.
And when you Q onto a Sejuani with a passive up, doesn't do any damage either, so still, he has indexed fully into the lethality side. I'm very interested to see it because you mentioned that Storm Razor Rapid Fire Cannon could be a double item being sold, Infinity Edge, and another item purchased there. If you do consider changing, Lethality Varus is very strong till 30 minutes and falls away, and obviously a right-click Infinity Edge Varus will be better against the full tank lineup.
Maybe the game farmed this much as well. I mean, you've got a fair bit of money.
Maybe the game will go that way. Only time will tell. 466 CS onto the Varus so far. Baron control once again there for Afreeca. They started up.
Spirit gets himself up here as once again Lehens very far forward, close to 3,000 health in that health pool though. Sword's going to move on over. Vision of Empire spots out what Griffin are trying to do as Tarzan has a good flanking position once again, but the Baron stifled another time here by Griffin.
Cannot make the trade in 1 minute 50 of second Elder for Baron. That is a losing trade if I ever heard of one. 4 stacks.
Oh yeah.
Onto the side of Griffin. So I think Griffin are now at the point where, curiously, they're okay with the game extending because you can only put control wards in either the Elder or the Baron pit. You cannot put them on both and have adequate vision.
And with the update to the Elder Drake, Griffin have certainly set themselves up for either of these buffs. If we get either of these buffs, we win. It's basically how it works, but if Afreeca get an Elder Drake, that's only going to be their first one. Not going to be nearly as impactful, especially with only one Drake, as Infernal Chains are in there now, as Tarzan does remember have that GA, and that is just going to be Spirit going pop. The jungler is dead with a Baron available. Chovy grabs the double, as Tucson also throws his life away. Tarzan so incredibly low, doesn't actually care. It's just going to buff up his Baron damage as the three members of Afreeca. What can they do to try and stop this? We'll need some heroic barrels that Lehens is just denying. There's the flash Nara into the wall as he gets popped back as well. A lot of health on Kuro, who does have the World Ender. Isn't going to invest it just yet. Remember, does have the GA. On top of it, a lot of lives, but Kramer doesn't. He's going to get taken out by that piercing arrow, and now all of Afreeca are falling low. He's charging back up with the Blood Well, but he's just going to die again. And Griffin, they managed to get the Baron. They managed to kill the Afreeca Freecs, and it looks like they're going to manage to win game one.
The minion wave is being proxied by the GP, so can they win the game anyway? Death timers are so long. All Keen can do is stop the minion wave.
If they can tank up the turrets before the minion that they have, the one heroic minion gets there, they're going to be able to do it as Sword is pushing forward. The respawns have already come in, Papa, so it looks like it's only going to be a base broken. That's exactly what Griffin want, because now the Elder Drake, as they set up earlier, has just spawned.
On the exit, the Elder Dragon, the second buff would be so big, but Atlas in the clutch when the game was there to be won. The pick was actually made by Griffin. Sejuani too far up, and the team not defending the Sejuani means the Baron does go to Griffin, and now the Elder will second Drake buff, 5-minute duration. Remember, 32% AD and AP. There's tanks against a lethality Varus. The Varus is changing his items, and Griffin in the clutch. When the game was there to be won, they turn on to Spirit. The rest of Afreeca pull back. They don't play with the Sejuani. Spirit goes down, Tucson out of position goes down as well. And in that cavalcade of objectives, Griffin get the Baron.
And it was Tarzan's face check and then so much damage out of him that really managed to get that one down. The Olaf just right in there in battle mode. This has been a masterclass from Tarzan in late game Olaf with odd builds.
And how about late game? I'm selling my items and making them work against tanks. We have Blade of the Ruin King, Rage Blade, now completed by Viper. The game has gone long enough. The farm happened. It seemed like this comp would fall away because of what they indexed into. Turns out you can have your cake, eat it too, and then you get a chocolate brownie afterwards because they've got a new build going here for the side of Viper, and it works oh so much better against Afreeca's comp.
That's exactly right. Transitions it so beautifully as well. That's, of course, selling a Ghostblade and an Edge of Night and then picking up two pretty expensive items afterwards. So not something that you should be aiming to do at home, kids, by 46 minutes into the game. This time around, though, Viper has been free farming and things are absolutely okay. They take down the turret, and now the engage is on. Blade of the Ruin King used by Sword to slow down Spirit. Spirit's Refuge is going to be in there, and so aptly named, but not enough, as the Nara is going to take down that Sejuani, and Keen is going to die as well. The last-ditch effort is going to fail from the Afreeca Freecs. And Griffin are on the board in game number one against the quintessential Afreeca comp and the reworked brand new Aatrox that had been undefeated and 100% banned otherwise in every other game. They steal away the victory against the Afreeca Freecs.
Cool, calm, and collected in the clutch are Griffin in game number one. With the composition, you first thought, how are they going to do it? They need to get it done by 30 minutes. But while Afreeca were able to fizzle them out a little bit when the Firecracker should have been online from Griffin, they could never actually get a game-winning advantage. And then it all came down to one Baron bait that was won by Griffin. There was a seesaw of vision around Baron. Griffin had it for the longest time, couldn't take advantage of it. Afreeca took it, and looks like they were going to get the Baron themselves. But a pick onto Spirit, a pick onto Tucson, and that passage of play is what wins Griffin the game. So important, I think, for the Griffin confidence to actually win game number one. This is the first kind of mortal blow onto Afreeca they've really felt at any time in the playoffs. How will they bounce back, and how will the draft look? Because now you lost to a Griffin comp that doesn't pass the eye test of what Griffin usually want to draft.
And I think it's more than that as well, because it's Griffin finding that win against the classic Afreeca Freecs draft with the busted Aatrox to come in, with their Swain that was 13-1 up until this point. Everything that they had was just classic Afreeca, and they were playing out the game exactly the way they wanted to as well. Just turned out that Griffin outthought them around the Elder Drake and then just played masterfully from there.
And also to your point, we had two busted champions, right? Taliyah and Aatrox.
Yeah.
Taliyah left open by Afreeca multiple times, and they say, not that busted. we're really happy with the Olaf matchup until we can work it out. Now we see the busted Aatrox come out and do almost the least damage in the game. The Aatrox did basically nothing here in the 1-3-1, did decently, never got into a team fight, was kited the entire time when the game was there to be won, was behind the Sejuani who was getting picked off. So it feels like Griffin kind of took